So I want to start with the national championship game that happened this past Monday. Georgia and TCU converged on the national championship stage for a battle of the ages. Or at least that's what we were told before the game started. I, honestly, just going to be fully transparent with all of you, am one of those people that really thought TCU had a chance to win. In fact, I told multiple people that I did, in fact, think TCU was going to pull it out just based on how they've performed all season long, and then, of course, really taking it to Michigan last week. But unfortunately for the TCU Horned Frogs, they got absolutely ran over by the Bulldogs this week. 65-7. I mean, it was one of those games where, you could turn it off at the end of the first quarter and you wouldn't have missed anything. And I mean, you would have missed, obviously, Georgia scoring, a lot more points, but unfortunately, you wouldn't have missed anything of real importance. Stetson Bennett was lifted in the fourth quarter. He didn't even play the rest of the entire fourth quarter. It was just one of those games where, nothing really went on. It wasn't a whole lot in terms of importance in that game. It was over basically 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes in, whatever it was. It was 38-7 at halftime. It just, TCU never even came close to scoring for the rest of the game. It was just an absolute dominant performance by the Bulldogs. So hats off to Georgia. I know I have a lot of Georgia fans that watch my podcast. Shout out to all of you guys. I hope you guys are as happy as you could possibly be right now. I know I would be if I were you guys. Back-to-back national championships for Georgia after waiting 20 some odd years to get another one, possibly even more than that. Actually, probably more like 30 or 40. It's been quite a long time before last year since Georgia had won a national championship, and now they have won 2 in a row, and this one, it was a complete laugher. So congrats to Georgia. For TCU, I mean, it's hard to even find the positive words to say at this point for TCU. I mean, obviously, you made it to the national championship game, and that's an accomplishment in and of itself, especially for a team like TCU that is not typically considered to be among the best college football teams in the nation from a year-to-year basis, or one of the more prolific college football programs in the country. Obviously, it's pretty well known, but in terms of, just dominance on the field, it's certainly not known for that. It's certainly not Alabama or Georgia or Clemson or LSU or Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, Michigan. There's tons and tons of schools, Wisconsin, and I'm sure that there's plenty more that I'm leaving out of teams that when you think of dominant college football programs, you're definitely taking, let's even just look at Florida State, teams like that, and tons more that you're probably picking over TCU as a historical franchise or program, I should say. But this year, TCU balled out all season long, and obviously, Michigan had one of the more stout defenses in the nation, and they really took it to them. I think 55 or 56 points, somewhere around there, they put up against Michigan. Now, you could talk about Michigan not really being able to win a lot of big games since Jim Harbaugh took over, but, nonetheless, Michigan really was dominant all season long, and TCU took it to them. When I don't think a lot of people really thought TCU would do that at that point. So, there's a lot of positives in that way to talk about for Michigan, or excuse me, for TCU. But, obviously when you go out there in the national championship game and you absolutely lay an egg like they did, it's heartbreaking. It's really sad because, especially for a school that's, again, not as historically dominant as TCU, you never really know when that chance is going to come again. So you really want to pull that out if you are TCU. But unfortunately, of course, they really had no chance from the jump. I was at a conference while this game was going on, and I told several people, from the opening snap, it just looked like there was just a humongous talent gap And certainly it turned out to be the case that there was a humongous talent gap between Georgia and TCU. And, Georgia is one of the most dominant teams in college football for a reason. They went undefeated this year. Really, other than the Ohio State game, quite frankly, there wasn't even really much drama all season long. I'm sure that there were some close games that Georgia was in that I'm forgetting about, but other than last week against Ohio State, I can't really come up with a scenario this season where Georgia was genuinely in trouble, was genuinely, scared that they may lose the game. And I'm not saying that the players or the coaches were actually scared that they were going to lose the game, but as a fan base or as college football fans in general, you sat there and watched that game, and Ohio State really, controlled the vast majority of that game until the very end. So, pretty much the whole game, you're sitting there thinking, oh man, Georgia may have met their match. And other than that, they really hadn't had that all year. So, Georgia, one of the most dominant teams in college football history this year, right up there with LSU from a few years ago. Just completely running the table and running college football. So, again, congratulations to Georgia. I'm really looking forward to seeing how guys like Jalen Carter perform in the NFL. And then obviously I'm kind of interested to see where Stetson Bennett ends up and how high he ends up being drafted. He has proven himself to be one of the most decorated college football quarterbacks of all time, 2 national championships, right? So, he certainly does not have any kind of slouch of a resume. But in terms of pure arm talent, quarterback talent, he's not going to be looked at same way as a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud is going to be this year. So I'm interested to see what happens with him, because I think, obviously, people make jokes about him being 25 or 26 years old or whatever it is at this point. But for me, I don't really care much about that. It doesn't matter how, if you're 25 or 26, sure, your prime might be a little bit shorter than if you drafted a quarterback at 20 or 21 years old and they ended up blossoming into an absolute stud. But for me, I would rather have a guy like Stetson Bennett as my quarterback than, and I'm going to bring this guy up again as I've done in prior podcasts, than a guy like Zach Wilson, who's young, who has crazy amounts of talent, arm talent, leg talent, right? But the guy's never played in any big games, and now we're seeing at the NFL level, he can't really play in big games, at least not thus far. So, I'd rather have a guy like Stetson Bennett, who at the very least has been in some big games, who's led his team, who's been a leader, who's won a crazy amount in college, and now has 2 national championships to his name. So for me, you know what? I'd rather have a guy like Stetson Bennett as my quarterback. I wouldn't mind that, even if he's not the most talented naturally quarterback in the draft or in the league or what have you. So I'm interested to see where he goes, and I'm really interested to see how obviously the rest of college football shakes up and shakes out over this upcoming season. But again, congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs, your 2023 national champions.
Hey guys, me again. Thank you so much for watching one of my clips from the Lopes Goes Last podcast. These clips are so much fun to do. I absolutely love making them, and I absolutely love doing them. And this podcast is my baby, so I really want this thing to grow, and I really want it to succeed. So if you did like what you see, please subscribe. Also hit that bell notification so you never miss any one of my episodes or one of my clips like this one. And please do also like and share these videos with your friends and your family so that we can make this thing grow as fast as possible. And I wanted to thank you again so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a great rest of your day.